Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. This time I'm going to be doing a double dose of Tier 10 gameplay. First up we have the SDB-1. Now this is the Tier 10 Japanese medium tank. It was the last tank that I unlocked in the game. I only have artillery left to unlock, but those don't count as tanks really. Ooh, sure, I'm going to read all about that in the comments below. But I digress. The SDB-1 specialises at being a pretty darn good all-rounder. Its weaknesses are that its side and rear armour are pretty weak, and it's very vulnerable to artillery. And also, its accuracy isn't the best of the Tier 10 medium tanks. But really one of the key problems is that it has 2.3 second aim time, where the majority of Tier 10 medium tanks have about 2 seconds. But the SDB-1 matches the FV-4202, the British Tier 10 medium tank, with the highest gun depression at Tier 10 of 10 degrees. And that allows me to work this ridgeline. And at these kind of ranges, it doesn't really matter that you have long aim time and a relatively poor accuracy, because you're able to still put in your shots very quickly, and with 7.5 rounds a minute rate of fire, it's absolutely fantastic. Now I'm in a great situation here. We're above a lot of enemies, managing to hide as much of our armor as possible and engaging them in the side. Now looking back on that shot, it was rather poor. I should have shot him in the side of the turret, exactly where my second shot went in. The SD-1 has a good amount of spaced armor, and you're far better to shoot a flat, turreted side than you are to try and shoot down at the hull armor. And just check out the rate of fire of this gun. We've already done 1,214 damage to him. Make that over 1,600, and he gets taken out. He was focusing on the tanks that were in front of him, and nobody is paying me attention, because as soon as we fired, we pull back, and they don't seem to have figured it out yet. A ricochet there off a very well-angled frontal armor of the tank. And within the first 2.5 minutes of the game, we have done 3,500 damage. But it hasn't stopped us losing a large amount of tanks on that flank. The enemies are playing very aggressively indeed. And as we can see over there, our Tier 10s are just starting to get an engagement against the enemy Object 268. The SDB-1 really is one of the best ridgeline warriors in the game. We take our first hit from a T-69, and we turn our turret to the side there, looking around, which is a bit of a poor move, so we get hit by the Object 140. Oh no, this isn't good. A T-57 Heavy piles around the corner and puts his first shot into our lower plate, and the second shot, taking out our ammo rack and our driver. But we put them both back in, and see that he's aiming at someone else. He's fired one. And so he can only have one more shot left. So we put one into him, and now we focus on trying to stop the Super Pershing from closing the distance with the T-34. It's looking rather grave here. Under 4 minutes into the game, and our team have lost the majority of our tanks. A little unlucky there that we get penned by the Super Pershing, but a good shot by him right into our lower plate. But we've got more pressing issues, an E-100 to deal with. I decide to try and flank around him, putting another shot into his side, but I open myself up to the side flank. In retrospect, it would have been better if I went down into this position sooner, but I end up there in the end. Our E-100 sets him on fire, using up his premium fire extinguisher, but that isn't going to save him, because we have completely owned that E-100 and take him out of the game completely. But oh dear, there's our friend, Mr. T-57 Heavy, who piles over the ridge to finally take us out. The SDB-1 may be a very strong tank with 10 degrees of gun depression, pretty good turret armor, and the rate of fire to take out of its opponents very, very, very quickly. There's very little that you can do when probably the fastest, most consistent damage dealer at short to medium ranges in the game, the T-57 Heavy, clocks your frontal armor. I was really hoping that our buddy over there in the E100 would have been able to put a shot into that T-57 Heavy, but it simply just wasn't to be. The E100 scouting for the T-57 Heavy, but it looks like he was unable to just get into the ridge lines, and so he decides to focus up on the easier targets, the Tier 8s pushing their way through the town. We managed to dish out the punishment this game, doing over 7,000 damage, of which quite a lot of that were to Tier 10 targets. But sometimes it's just not enough, and I really needed a bit more luck from the very well angled, albeit only 110mm thick frontal armor of this tank. Let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats before we move into some more gameplay. Thankfully, as we picked up the high caliber medal, this wasn't too bad. 1,407 experience for our loss, with nearly 100k credits made, giving us 45,000 profit. In fact, we got more base experience than everyone on the enemy team apart from 2 players, even though we lost. Now at these kind of distances, it would have been a miracle if I'd missed any of my shots in the SDB-1, and most of those hits penetrated. I remember that one that was poorly aimed against the SD-1, and I think the other was against a KV-4, but we didn't want to hang around on the ridgeline for too long. All in all, I think with just a little bit more luck on my side with my hull armor, and maybe a bit more fire support from this E100, we might have been able to pull off the win. The SDB-1 is probably my favorite Tier 10 medium tank in the game at the moment, and expect a full tank review as soon as I've played about 50 to 100 games in the tank. Anyway, let's move along. We're going to be playing in a Tier 10 tank destroyer, the Object 263. So now we are playing on Runeberg, a fantastic map for the Object 263. Now, if this is the first time that you've seen this tank, it is a rather underplayed Tier 10 tank destroyer. Now, it lacks gun depression as the turret is rear-mounted, but it makes up for that with fantastic upper plate armor and superstructure. There are weak points on the inside here and here if it's angled. The whole of the side armor is garbage and very prone to ammo rack. The rear is bad, and also it is open top, so if you're able to splash HE ammunition on here, then it is also going to cripple it. We can see the shells very neatly lined up along here as well, which is an easy ammo rack. So we fire our first shot through a car, hopefully to try and track the E50, but we miss it. But thanks to the fantastic rate of fire on this 130mm, I believe, gun, we're able to quickly pick him off with our second shot. So this 130mm has got 290mm of penetration and 550 average alpha damage. I believe it is the only gun in the game with 550 alpha damage. It is a very unique weapon to utilize on the battlefield. So we have a T110E5 against us. As long as we can avoid him shooting our lower plate, we should be okay. Now the gun shield on this tank is about 240mm thick, I believe. So you'll have to have a good roll to penetrate us with his AP rounds. There he is. The aim time on this tank is not too bad. We're able to target his lower plate and put in a meaty 534 damage into him. I also believe that our rate of fire is about the same as the T110E5. And so we target the weak point on his tank, this time with almost a minimum roll of 457. A Ferdinand appears. We can loop one just through that gap in the building, and 571 damage to that Tier 8 German tank destroyer. Now the Ferdinand must be thinking, this position would be awesome. But it would be if he was in a good matchup. But versus Tier 10 tanks such as this, with ultra high penetration guns, it's just really not going to work out for him today. And at these kind of ranges, it's very hard for the enemy to target our weak points, and our armor is very strong indeed. So a great start to this game as well. 2,400 damage very quickly. Unfortunately, that one went a little high. It looks like it hit the upper plate of the T110E5. We're trying to target his weak point again. This time, it flies completely off in a random direction, but somehow still penetrates his turret armor. We're trying to find a tiny shot on that Ferdinand, but we're unable to do so. So far, a bit of a mixed start for either team. But here we have an IS-7 in front of us. We put one right through his track. And we try to get out of harm's way quickly, as this T-125 is trying to shoot us in the side. He misses our lower plate, hitting our track instead, but we don't miss his. Finishing him off, and putting out a combined total of 1,838 damage to the T-125 for no return fire. Now, I don't want to expose my tank to all of those people in the side. If we do that, it's going to be very bad days ahead for us. Luckily, the IS-7 comes right out, gives us his lower plate, and we're able to plant another one through it. This time we aim a little low. We were trying to scope out his lower plate there, but I think I aimed a few centimeters too low. If we'd been able to hit his lower plate again, we would have been in a great position. But we see the enemies have pulled back round the corner, which allows us an opportunity to advance. The enemies have completely taken out the field, killing one of our better players in the Object 140, which is a really bad result for us. So I feel like it's time to be aggressive right now. We have to push through this flank before the enemies will overwhelm us from the eastern pass. And that's a great start. I try not to block the Pershing, so I go forwards. Hopefully, we should have a better reload than the IS-7, and we take him out before he's able to finish off the Pershing behind us. The Pershing... Oh no, sorry, the IS-8 sets the T-125, sorry, E4 on fire, and we finally get nailed in the lower plate by the M103, who also damages our engine. But we put a good one into him, make that 2, and the IS-8 finishes him off. Now we have to deal with an E100. I don't really want to take that 750 alpha damage, and unfortunately the M103 behind me dies instead. So I come round the corner, and then I forget about that flank. That was a poor play by me. We bounce off the M46 Patton's turret. And this is where things start to go downhill. We're greatly outnumbered, but not outgunned in this tank. The T-44 puts in a shot into us. We finish him off, and I just want to show you where that one went in. It's quite important. That shot actually went in here. We had our tank angled about like this, I believe. And it shows you that that location in there is a point of very low armor, and even a T-44, probably with 175 millimeters of penetration, is able to go through us. Now we're having to deal with a T-30 at long range. We put a good shot into him, but he puts in a better one into us, making a gigantic 155 millimeter hole in our lower plate. We can't hang around for long. There's a Patton that's behind us. We have to duck in, and then we have to turn our armor to the side before the T-30 will come back out for his second shot. And I need to get my back to the wall as quickly as I can to try and get as much distance between the enemies as possible. Trying to scout out both directions, preparing for the shot. The Patton spots me first, T-30 comes out to side scrape, and the Patton finishes me off. Unfortunately, the Patton will have shot me from here. I wasn't over-angling my side armor, so it looks like he as well put in a good shot into my lower plate, taking us out the game with 7,000 damage done. This game hopefully showed you the strengths of the Object 263. Its gun has a fantastic rate of fire that's able to dish out the damage very quickly and often catches the enemies unaware. However, you also saw that because of the lack of alpha damage, you quite often will get out-traded by enemy tanks with 150 plus millimeter guns, such as this T-30. 7,000 damage done in each game, and still a loss where the enemies probably had about a third of their team left. Maybe I played too passively in the middle of the game and I should have been more aggressive, but really I feel that sometimes you just can't win them all. So in this game we got 2,200 experience for our loss, although this was including some event experience. That's 976 base in a tier 10 loss game, giving us more than everyone on the enemy team apart from the E100, who, congratulations to you, picked up the top gun. Hopefully this game gave you an idea of the Object 263, some of its strengths, and also I highlighted some of its weaknesses. Expect more on this on an upcoming tank review on the Object 263. Anyway guys, hopefully you enjoyed this double dose of tier 10 gameplay. If you did, please consider giving the video a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments what you think about the STB-1 and the Object 263. Are they amongst your favorite tanks? And if so, for what reasons? And also, let me know how you deal with when you feel like you've had a massive game and your team still loses. Do you just jump straight in again and try and do the same? Or do you maybe play a different tank? Or even take a break? Let me know what your tips are about how to remain calm and not go tilt. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.